All right, good morning, everyone.
Good
We started
morning.
recording. I'm not sure if we
Awesome.
should do introductions or not. But let's do quicker introductions just for the video. So I'm
Yes.
Jonathan from Mintgate. Louis, you want to go next?
Yep.
Should I go
I'm
next?
Luis from Mintgate as well.
Louis. Yeah, Max here from the Rarible DAO, I guess. I mean, we're all from the Rarible DAO, but from the comms working group. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's right. We are all part of Rarible DAO. But I'm Rarible. I'm Rarible. I am Mark from the Rarible DAO communications team.
Wonderful. And today we're talking about how we are going to be, what brings us into this space and how we can work to create the messaging around Rarible DAOs. Is there a particular artifact that we are for this article that we're going to produce, right?
Yes. Yes.
Is there a name for this article?
So this is a series, and maybe this to provide context a little bit. So we are exploring the series where we feature and spotlight, builders, building on top of the Rarible ecosystem. And so, Mintgate is certainly one of them. And we wanted to sort of shed a spotlight, talk about what you guys are doing, what the roadmap looks like, what's under the hood, what's the motivations behind it, and your experiences. We would just love to explore that. So, yeah.
Maybe we can start off with a little description about what is Mintgate, right? Like a one-liner or a two-liner.
Yeah, wonderful. Mintgate allows you to take any videos, audio, or web content and token gate that content on the basis of an NFT. So on NFT ownership, it could be one NFT, it could be multiple NFTs. These NFTs could be minted through Rarible protocol on one or multiple different blockchains, which is also really exciting. And we, in turn, are providing a protocol to gate access to that content wherever Rarible protocol is minting those tokens onto.
Fantastic.
We are trying to create the best content delivery network for token gated access. We want to be the next Kickstarter or the next Netflix for token ownership, and really provide a stable professional platform for releasing high quality content on the basis of NFTs. And I think taking a step back, allowing through Rarible protocol and the royalty mechanics that Rarible provides, allowing fans to both pre-buy access to videos that are going to be created, and then allowing those fans to be invested in the production of these large creative assets, I think is the future. And it's the future that we're working really hard to try to realize.
1,000% agree. I would love to maybe invite us to maybe rewind a little bit. And, I am curious of, your background, Jonathan, and also Louis, as being, the team that created Mintgate. I would love to hear, what you guys were doing before Mintgate. What's your background? What's your experience? And then also maybe take us on a journey of how you actually got into crypto and NFTs and building this platform. Maybe we'll start. Yes.
I've already been talking so much. I'll let Louis take this.
Yeah. So I got into crypto back in 2017. That's when I first heard about Bitcoin. Before that, I was teaching English online, and then I had started an online website business for recruiting teachers for the company that I had already been teaching with. And in order to do that, I scaled up my skills as far as digital marketing and like PPC, so like paid advertisement on Google, But then I, learned about, at the time I was trading stocks and like, investing, and that's how I kind of like heard about Bitcoin, was like, in one of those channels. Someone mentioned LTC, and I was like, what's this? And couldn't find it on any of the stock exchanges or, trading view, and like initially. And then I was like, oh, this is crypto. And then I just kind of like, like fell down the rabbit hole learning about what this was, like, why is this valuable? And then like that just was like eye-opening, because like, when you really ask that question, you really start thinking like, well, why is money valuable at all? And it was just like, it felt like an eye-opening experience, kind of like I felt like a bird in the cage. And then for the first time, I saw the cage around me, because now I understood like how money works, how like the government works, how this like whole system is really like functioning, and like why like, crypto is so valuable. And that just was really inspiring. It was the first time I was like, I have like this sense of understanding and like, an ability to like, kind of take control of like my environment, because I have this understanding. And so I just continued doing research on crypto. And I really took the wrong approach, because I started, from like the financial and like, trading and learning how to, charts, and I was doing day trading and swing trading, and realized like, well, for me to do this successfully, I need a lot more money, because like, you need a lot of capital to be able to like, see a lot of like gains, unless you're like, striking home every time, which is hard. And I realized, well, this isn't the way I want to do this. Like, I need to get a job in this space. I need to like, provide more value in the space, because I want this to be my life, like, just working in this industry. I want this to be like global. I know it's going to be huge. So I realized like, well, I need to learn how to code, because that's like, I want to know how this stuff works at like, the deepest, most intimate level. So, it was like 2018, I started learning how to code, and I like started with JavaScript, got the basics down, immediately moved to like, Solidity and smart contracts as soon as I got the basics. And, I've been doing like freelance and like, learning from different builders in the space through like, Eat the Blocks, and like as well as like Austin Griffith, who's helped me with like some stuff when I was like learning. And then like DAP University, Ivan on Tech, all these like, builder channels. And last summer is when I met the team at Gitcoin Kernel. As I was like, at the time I had a client, someone who wanted me to build an NFT marketplace last summer. And I was like, this is really hard, because like I was like, I was fairly confident with like smart contracts, and I was like, I could do this. Like, I know like some contracts I can use and rework, but like there was like a whole back end system that I was not familiar with. And like I was like moderately like, like familiar and like good with React, but like, to build a whole marketplace was like another thing for just one person to do. And so I joined this team because at the time in Gitcoin Kernel, it was just like, oh, it was advertised as like, yeah, NFT marketplaces and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, this sounds like a good, chance for me to learn and like skill up. And we ended up running with it. And, kind of like, the story goes from there. So
Nice, nice. From speculation to becoming a builder. I love that story. What about you, Jonathan?
I just every story I hear of people getting into crypto, it always amazes me, because everyone has such a unique tapestry of stories that has brought them to this space. Mine, I originally started. I think what really the strain that started me on my journey was working at Adobe. I worked on the Adobe Flash runtime team, and I assisted with the other creative tooling as part of the Adobe Creative Suite. And one of the things that I got really attracted to was working with creator communities and like meeting with them, meeting with all kinds of creator communities, from large brands all the way down to small and independent creators that were using our tooling to build communities. And I love this idea of software and maybe abstractly technology as such that can empower and give life to communities. A lot of these communities, they just start with an idea. For a brand, it might start with some new concept they want to put out there. For a new community, it's something that they're really passionate, something new, something that's niche in society, in the internet community, that they want to bring life into. So they use software to literally breathe life into these concepts. And helping to develop software in this way really resonated with me. It felt I got a deep sense of pride in the work that I was doing, built to ultimately provide tooling that allowed people to develop out these visions. I helped start the Adobe open source initiative, start taking a lot of our software internally and making that open source. The Adobe Flash runtime, I worked with Mozilla and Google to improve JavaScript as a standard in order to not have to rely on a proprietary Flash runtime player, but the browsers could actually support this natively as an open standard. And to me, this is all part of this inner working of making an open ecosystem that ultimately creators have control over. And everything is just protocols all the way down of open, free, accessible tooling that empowers creative ideas. So I left Adobe and worked in building different tooling companies outside of crypto that help support community development. So one of the platforms I helped develop was called Chatformer, and it was kind of like a Discord, pre-Discord software platform. The idea is just to help communities get together, organize their ideas, use bots to be able to aid management over their communities and help foster them that way. And Discord is now more of that vision than I had back then. What got me into crypto, though, was going to ETH Denver about 2 years ago. And anyone who's gone to ETH Denver, it's really a fantastic conference that even 2 years ago, when DAOs were young, much of the conference was around DAOs. And I came in blind to that conference, not knowing anything about DAOs, and then everyone's talking about DAOs here, and I'm like, what is DAO? And then oh yeah, the governor of Denver is there talking about DAOs and how he wants to use DAOs. I'm like, what? The governor is talking about what is this DAO thing? I don't what am I missing here? What is this? And then to learn oh yeah, it's this way in which we can use crypto to empower communities with this new way of decentralized technology, and we can empower communities in a trustless way. Well, shit, this is amazing. I knew at this point when I realized that this is a type of open technology that could bring communities to the next level. Okay, so putting my engineer hat on, what some of the common problems I saw with DAOs all over the place? A lot of them were starting their own tokens in order to generate some way of generating revenue and insulating their economy. But these tokens are only a financial instrument. They don't actually have any utility to them. And as an engineer, I kind of immediately identified this. There needs to be a way that these tokens actually have direct utility into the creative production that these DAOs represent as a community. There's this missing piece here in the market. It was taking this idea and joining the Gitcoin kernel program, which was a year ago, just over a year ago, where I met my other founders who all came from their own backgrounds, all with the same passion of there's something missing in the market. We need to be able to have this there needs to be some general purpose technology that gives tokens utility so that so they actually have practical purpose to them inside these DAOs, inside these communities. So that's been my journey, and it's just been an absolute adventure every day since then.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. Thank you.
So when did you guys start Mintgate? That was a year ago?
Yeah, 13 months ago.
13 months ago. And the idea is the same when it initially started and today, or did things change along the way?
Oh, things changed.
Things changed?
How many times, Lewis, do you think we've probably, we've always had the end goal but like where right now in the market, how to adapt to needs has fluctuates as the market changes.
We've gone through like 3 different names, like maybe like 5 different like, strategies and like, kind of like methods for like how to go about like bringing value to tokens, from social tokens to NFTs, and also like DAO shares, and like kind of this like amalgamation of like, well, they're all standards, we could do it all. So, and they all need some utility. So
Totally, and I think that's the life of a startup, right? Where you try to find product market fit. You have these assumptions, you ship it, and then oh shoot, okay, well there's you see other use cases for it, and then you adapt to it. And I'm curious. Well, I think Max already has sort of like touched on, and you guys already touched on the changes and the pivots that you guys have made. What are some like use cases that you didn't foresee, like on the Mintgate like app, were there any use cases where it's like, oh, this specific user or this specific market is using it in a certain way that you didn't like, oh, that's very novel,
I think a simple one was just how many people use Mintgate for just token gating forms. That was kind of a novel thing of like, wow, so many people have a need to know, like people are buying tokens, NFTs all over the place, but who are these people? And like, how do you give them rewards, or how do you invite them to an event, or like, how do you work with that community at all? And, being able to provide a form that only owners of your NFT can access, and optionally, provide information on if they wanted to participate in a token drop, or in some sort of rewards, or they want to come to an event. All these are purposes that we didn't foresee when first starting our journey, that like token gating forms was going to be such a big use case.
Is token gating IRL events in the roadmap, or is it already in place? I'm curious.
So we actually have ticketing support already live on the website. It's a small feature on there, but it'll actually generate a QR code, and you can scan that QR code and it'll validate at that moment if the user owns the NFT. And no app is required. It just all works through the website as its own barcode scanner. It's really simple, but it's been one of those experiments that like we released it, but we need to spend more time to like actually productize it and market it.
Amazing.
But yeah, I would love to see it. But also with the pandemic, there isn't a big industry right now for physical ticket gating.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true.
That was awesome when you guys launched it. Like you were gating, online stuff, and then all of a sudden you open up this whole other space where you can gate, physical content as well, right? So that was really cool when you guys launched that. But I can imagine that it's not being necessarily used that much yet. Jonathan, you mentioned your content delivery network of sorts. Could you maybe explain that in simple terms?
Yeah. So outside of crypto, CDNs, content delivery networks, are kind of the workhorses of the internet. They really help deliver all the rich content that users enjoy on the internet. It could be videos, images, audio. They are very large machines that are optimized for mass content delivery, and they're really important because when we're watching a video, we don't want any like buffering time. We have no patience for like the technology being fickle. It just needs to work, right, and work well. And like Netflix uses like large CDN networks for streaming 4K videos, and they have very specialized CDN networks for delivering high definition 4K video content around the world. What we're trying to do is provide, what we've done is we've built our own CDN machine that that only serves content if the end user proves that they own a token. And only then does this machine stream out content to those end users if they have this active token proving session to the CDN. This prevents the content that creators are sharing to be, taken and shared somewhere else, or like someone could take, if you wouldn't want a user that can take like a private URL and put it on Twitter, and then non-token holders could view that content. You want this data to be purely private and only accessible if you own the token. So you have to stream. So at this, streaming data protocol, it's got to be secured. So this is what a CDN, sorry, I'm ranting, but ultimately what a CDN is just a general purpose engine facilitated to serve lots of data to many users simultaneously.
Got it. It's awesome. So if I wanted to, gate a video, would I put it on YouTube and then gate it through Mintgate, or would I put it directly onto Mintgate?
So you can do both today. You can upload 4K video directly onto Mintgate, and we serve that. And that's actually a new feature that we just launched last week. That was a few months in the works, but we now support it. However, you could also put in a private YouTube link, and what we'll do is we'll actually seed that content through our delivery network so that no end user, when they unlock the link, will see your private YouTube link. They will only see the video stream coming through YouTube, but through Mintgate. So they have no opportunity to reshare out that private YouTube link. And this is different from a lot of people ask us, like, how is Mintgate different from Rarible unlockable links, right? Because like in the Rarible marketplace, you can put in a YouTube link, but the difference is when you unlock that YouTube link on Rarible or OpenSea, it's just a text, like you're just unlocking the ability to view that YouTube link, but then you could share it out on any platform, right? There's no content delivery network behind it. And that's what Mintgate is ultimately. We provide that content delivery network for tokens.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And yeah, I mean, now that we're sort of like maybe diving deep into the technology of like what's under the hood, with Mintgate, I'm curious, how did you find about Rarible protocol, and what made you decide to use it? In comparison to say other protocols available. So yeah, I'm curious. Maybe let's start with Lewis, and then maybe Jonathan.
Lewis actually will take us through the journey, because he's the one who pioneered and looking and promoted using Rarible, and story.
Yeah, I mean, like how I first heard about it is honestly like it feels like forever ago, and I'm not quite sure if I just picked it up in a chat randomly, but I knew what Rarible was already, and I'd used it previously, and I was like, excited to hear that like it was going to be a DAO, there's going to be a protocol, because everything that we wanted to do and that we were like realizing was like, we have these token gates, but these token gates have what we're basically doing is creating functional NFTs that have like an inherent value aside from like the subjective value of the art that it references. And what that means is like, well, if it has this value, people are going to want to like trade it, buy it, sell it. And so at the time I was like, well, we need to create a marketplace, and we need to also look into how we are able to support royalties. And there is no royalty standard. This is something that's been discussed in previous DAO calls, that they're EIPs, but none of them have been standardized and are used across the ecosystem. So, realizing that we needed to like, adapt to like, whatever platform, whatever standard makes the most sense and has the most likelihood to be adopted. And with Rarible, like, becoming more decentralized, becoming a protocol and a DAO, it just made sense to think like, well, this seems to have the most, like, this is probably going to end up having the most network effect. It's going to have the most, like, the spongiest likeness compared to like, competitors that haven't quite like decentralized, because anyone can jump in, anyone can contribute, makes it more vibrant, more resilient. And so, at that point, I was, came to the team. I was like, we shouldn't build this ourselves. Like that would be a lot of time and a lot of effort, and we can do a lot of other stuff with that time. We should just build with the DAO, because as they like, the protocol gets built, we can just like, onboard that, bring that into our system, benefit by being part of this network, part of this community, and then also provide our unique value and focus in our specific USP, which is token gating and creating functional NFTs that have like utility besides just the subjective value of the art that it contains. So that's kind of generally, I guess, like, the steps as to the thought process, why we decided to join and why we also decided to start building with the protocol.
Awesome. I want to hear your perspective, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think when I first started learning about Rarible protocol, there was a nugget in like the strategy that really appealed to me. And that is like, there's all these different NFT platforms that are being built up today, but it's like the Wild West on like everyone's kind of like in their own ecosystems. And from an engineer, that like my entire background has been thinking about standardization of creative tooling. And I'm looking at all these NFT ecosystems, and like I feel this missing piece. I'm like, there's no interoperability between them. There's a massive gap in this market. And when I saw Rarible protocol in its early stages, promoting itself as a protocol for NFT delivery, like that, I was very, very excited. I'm like, maybe this could be the technology that could provide stability. And hearing that Rarible protocol is now that it's gone open source, I think it is inevitable for it to become that standard fabric for NFT creation, indexing, the marketplace, the minting, industry-wide, and maybe for all blockchains. I'm very excited to see Rarible continue to grow in the next couple of years to support new blockchains, like all kinds of blockchains. Like I want to see Rarible protocol support not just 3, 4, 5, but like 20, 30, 50, all the blockchains, right? Like, and if you provide the right incentives for people to come in to be the adapters, you can make that happen. I'm actually working on a few fronts to make that happen for Rarible protocol, to bring in new adapters into the ecosystem.
Amazing. And I'm with you. I feel like for a protocol to be resilient, it has to operate with all these other chains too. If the future is decentralized, then it totally makes sense for the protocol to adapt through all these chains.
I mean, I also have, obviously a personal stake in this, not just using Rarible protocol, but it makes our jobs a lot easier to standardize on one open standard than like imagining a future where we would need to support, minting on 20 different blockchains, all with their own interface and standard and idiosyncrasies. That does not seem like a sustainable future.
1000%.
I like what you. Sorry.
No, go
I
ahead,
like
Max.
what you said, Jonathan, on the call last week. I think you were describing also the protocol as, like maybe the base Lego block, and you're adding a new component that other NFT projects can then later tap into, right? And I think you mentioned that the royalties and splits I'm paraphrasing right now. You said it in a way better sense, but that, that was like the royalties are like the binding, the rail, or like the binding thing across all these Lego blocks, right? You said that, right? Or am I?
Yeah, that is what I said.
The
The
glue.
royalties do act as a glue. They really do. I mean, it's hard to emphasize this point enough. Like, it's so obvious, and it's so powerful, and it's ultimately what's going to make the ecosystem flourish. Because anyone that can add value functionally to how Rarible works can add whatever they think is fair for their service as a royalty on top of the tokens being minted, and it just all works. If people are adding royalties that are too high, that then creates a competitive marketplace for other people to compete in, and you get the same. The royalty mechanic ultimately will help provide that fabric for all these partners to come together and ultimately provide a healthy ecosystem for the standard.
During that call,
it's crucial to Rarible succeeding.
During that call, like it also like, I tweeted something that I thought like, was like touched upon where like, this is really the, like Jonathan mentioned in the call, the base layer. This is like, the start, like, they have DeFi Legos. This is the start of like NFT Legos. Like I see Rarible protocol very much as like, Maker in the early days, or like, what Uniswap and like the apps building on it could be like Uniswap that like, propagate and proliferate the NFT ecosystem further, because now we have this like, foundation, this base layer, this like protocol that just works on its own to now like be able to like build more interesting models and more like unique and like niche things with NFTs. So
Absolutely, 1000% agree. It's like we've seen that with DeFi, right? I feel like the playbook is like DeFi offered a playbook where you've seen these like Legos build on top of each other, and man, like the use cases, the systems became like much more complicated, like over time. Which can be also the future for NFTs. I'm curious though. As a project that used the protocol, what can be improved, or what can be a future feature, that can be exciting, that could be useful?
What do you think, Liz?
So I mean, I think one improvement that's already been like, vocalized is like, documentation, of course. I think that's an ongoing thing, just because the royalties make sense, but there's, the protocol fees, and there's like, certain like, additional fees that like, it's kind of like I can have a general sense of like how we could utilize them, but it seems like why would we when we have royalties, and maybe those are fleshed out better on like, documentation. But besides that, everything seems to work really well. So I think that's really just like, just that would be the one improvement. As far as features though, like I think what would be interesting is like, I know the bidding, I think auctions are like, a new one being added. But I think it would be great if like, there was like support for like, bonding curves with NFTs, ways to fractionalize the NFTs through the protocol. If there was like, I know Alex had mentioned like, he wants Rarible to be like, this liquidity, NFT liquidity. And I think that's a really great, that would be amazing, because like liquidity is king. And if we have liquidity for NFTs, there's just like an endless amount of things that we could do with that. And I think that fractionalizing NFTs and making that like, more easier, and like, something that's supported through the protocol of projects could easily start doing that and building liquidity for independent projects, artists, like maybe a whole series of like, Board 8 Club could now be like, its own like thing where we can trade them easily. And I mean, it's just really fascinating, really fun to think about when you could like, when you add liquidity into anything. So
100%. Maybe about, your specific Lego block. So what does token gating open? What opportunities does it open for creators? I mean, I know there's plenty, but maybe you guys can give it another go.
I'd like to really quickly, like, maybe comment on this, because I think that touching on liquidity, this is really interesting to me as well. So token gating is effectively like, what creators can do is basically what they do on Patreon, but anywhere. you know. So what happened with OnlyFans? You know, they banned like sexual content. Now we realize like, well, this is awful because that's like millions of people out of work now because of their like, you know, their investors said no. And so like, you know, being able to token gate allows you to like host your content on Mintgate, on YouTube, wherever you want. You could host it yourself. And like, you know, this like gate will exist so long as like the token exists on the blockchain, which is forever. And as long as if you host it yourself, then there's no one who could really take it down except for you. And that provides like this flexibility, this freedom, this ability to be sustainable and independent on your own and monetize on your own terms. And then with the tradability of like the tokens that gate these links, you can also start trading gated links. Like there could be like a liquidity for like, you know, oh, I want this link, I'll trade it for you like we do with NFTs. But now if there was liquidity, you could lend it out. You could rent a link. It'd be kind of like Blockbuster, but like, you know, obviously digital. Like, you know, I'm going to rent this link for this video for just the week. And then like, you know, the person renting it out earns interest on that NFT as a result, you know, for the gated content behind it. So that's a really interesting, like, you know, feature. I think that would be fascinating to build out. But yeah, sorry, Jonathan, you can go ahead.
Well, no, these are things we talk quite a bit internally about. I think people being independent video creators is an audience that we're talking to right now to get them thinking about how they can create their own mini Netflix. You know, like Netflix was able to dominate the industry by well, through a variety of reasons, but we can do better now with using crypto and decentralized technology. You could, you know, we now have a platform to serve movie length 4K video content on the basis of NFTs. Like we've done the hard work. It's now possible, and that's a whole industry that I'm really excited to work with. Outside of that, I want to work with more independent video creators at a micro scale. I reached out to the Lazy Lions Discord community to talk to them about creating short animations that can be token gated as a way of further providing value to their community. And then I'd also like to see premium podcasts, you know, podcasts, particularly in the DeFi space, where podcasts that speculate on cryptocurrencies have a demand on them. And so these you know, there's people that daily you know, give their insights on Discord. I would love to be able to see like daily video drops going over the market that's token gated. Yeah, so these are just a few places to start. I mean, I know it sounds kind of dry, video and audio, but they're massive. They're titan industries on the internet. They're mostly entirely owned by centralized platforms, and I think that it's if we can't be successful there, you know, well, we should be successful there before like branching off into crazy other like super live. Like I want to do live streaming NFTs. That's another thing that's on our near roadmap. So like if you own an NFT, you get access to a live stream. That's something that we want to do in the near future. That's something that I would like to have released within maybe the next month, depending on the demand. Yeah.
That's pretty soon. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Ah.
Me too. If you know anyone that is interested in token gating live streams, let us know ahead of time, because as we build, it really helps to work with people that are interested in doing this as we're building out the feature, so we know that the feature meets the need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that being used in like gaming communities where there's a lot of like streaming and you know, some of the bigger streamers game streamers have a lot of like following, and also its adjacency to crypto too. It is pretty close.
Yes.
And so yeah, like I could see that community adopting something like that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have I'd like to get your thoughts. Like, what are other things that you give us as suggestions that we could help token gate with?
Max, what do you think?
I'm not sure about suggestions right now. I was thinking more about like, you have, I think, Jonathan, you mentioned it as well in a previous call. And Louis, you just mentioned as well, you have a limited set of tokens. And then how does that scarcity component, how do you see that scarcity component come into play, right? Because in the past, maybe you have a New York Times subscription, but there's an infinite amount of New York Times subscriptions, right? Like there's no limit to it. But now there is a limit to it. How do you see that dynamic play out?
This is a really interesting, like, thought experiment, like, and kind of like game theory to kind of like work with, because the idea is like, the internet, people are used to having like information just like free all the time and available to anyone. But when you like have like some content or some information that becomes a little exclusive, maybe like only 10 people, 50 people, 100 people can access it. And when that like, producer, whoever's producing that content, like continues to make high value content, then there's more demand because the people who are already experiencing it are talking about it. They also have an incentive to like, promote this producer because they hold this NFT, which gains value as more demand is in the, as there's more demand for like, observing, viewing, consuming the content. So it's a really interesting kind of like system where people who buy a token gated link NFT and like have access to this content not only have access to content because they love the content, they want to support the creator, but they also now have a personal stake in promoting that creator and their content, because as they continue to create higher quality content, this stuff becomes like vintage. It becomes like the classics, and they have an opportunity to also earn money, earn revenue by reselling these NFTs at a higher price, by doing marketing, advertising, being resellers for the creator. And the creator, could be earning, I mean, they maybe sell an NFT for $10, but then like, 5 years down the road, they earn royalties for that video that they created 5 years ago for like $500 because it's like trading at such a higher price and they've been creating great content the whole time. So it's this really interesting way of like supporting each other, having an audience that supports the creator and a creator that provides an income and a way for the audience to support themselves. And it's beautiful because there's just no middleman. You have this thing on the blockchain, so you use us to create the token gated link, but once it's there, right? So
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think, Louis, when you touched on like, exclusivity and value, and having exclusivity sort of like also like fuels demand for it, I think my mind goes to this social group that I'm a part of, which is also token gated, Friends with Benefits, FWB. I'm not too sure if we actually use your app, but well, that's the, I don't know the mechanism how we actually token gate the community, but yeah, it certainly drives the value. I mean, both for the token, but then also like the membership. Like now, more people wanted to actually, go on the Discord and be members of the social club. And I think to respond to like Jonathan about what are other use cases and maybe other features, my mind goes to, and maybe this is already something that's already currently implemented in the current version of Mintgate, but my mind goes to like zines, magazines, and publishing. I mean, there's certainly an art form still there, of curating and going by seasons, right? Like I could imagine, like say for example, like New York Times. Well, what's a magazine type? Let's say like Vice, for example, has a magazine before they actually went purely video. I love that magazine. And then that also goes with like different seasons. There's like a fall season, and I wonder if a future version of a magazine would be token gated, and that there would be different tokens for different seasons. um so I guess my mind goes towards that, and I can probably see that being used already like right now, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice one. I think my mind also goes to, because you have the content side, but you also have the distribution of token side, and that's also a huge world, right? Like I think you guys are already doing stuff with Popes, with with other things, and there you can once, there's so much stuff to do there where you can, programmatically based on, presence or if someone finished your video, he gets a token, and then he gets access to, and maybe a space in Decentraland. I guess you could do stuff with also token gating. I'm thinking about another project within Rarible on cyber, right? Like you could token gate a space potentially that only your closest followers can access. I don't know, things like that. Or you could token gate your room, like your metaverse room, like maybe, right? Like only your buddies can get in, or only your, yeah. So it's like these two sides, like distribution and content, which are both sides are like only growing, right? So a lot of stuff to do. And on the other note,
we have a lot of
sorry.
requests for VR token gating. That's also something that's on our roadmap.
Awesome. Yeah, so much stuff to do there as well. And what would happen if, with the scarcity part, I don't know, I was just thinking, what would happen if, would it be possible for a creator who has these tokens to say, okay, instead of using 1 token now, you only need 0.1. So it opens up, more people can access it, and the early contributors can still benefit because they'll be able to sell off maybe 0.9 of those tokens and make. Is that something you guys are thinking about, or does that like not work?
Well, that's funny because so when we started with social tokens, and with ERC20s, it's entirely possible to do. That's not possible to do with NFTs though, because they're you can't like turn them into like 0.1 of like an NFT. You'd have to fractionalize the NFT. So that's why, like, if fractionalizing NFTs becomes part of the protocol in the future, we could absolutely support that. And that's something that, like, I've been thinking about, but it again is like one of those features that, like, well, it's not in high demand right now. It's something that I think the protocol, it would make sense for them to add as a feature. And if people really wanted to do that, they could do that with an ERC20 token today still with a Mintgate. So
makes sense. Cool. Mark, you have some thoughts?
Yeah. You guys mentioned roadmaps. We're curious. I think we sort of touch. Oh yeah, that's another feature. Oh yeah, that's another one that's on our roadmap. I wonder what the 3 to 6 month roadmap would look like for Mintgate. Alpha leaks.
So, next 3 to 6 months, I think everything that Lewis touched on for improving our token minting and trading, and continuing to leverage the new features that Rarible Protocol is building. That's on our new roadmap. Another feature is, as I mentioned, live streaming NFTs. I would like within the next 3 months to support APIs that can be used for VR and game integration. And then lastly, we continue to have and build plans towards ways of serving large scale content like 4K video content, but on a backbone, on a decentralized data fabric that would be its own protocol network. So users could directly upload to this data fabric a 4K video that could be token gated. And this would be done, 100% decentralized and could last the next 50 years. So this is like one of the, I don't think that's going to be ready in the next 3 months, but I'd like to have the architecture in place for it within the next 6 months.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Max, I wonder, so I have a last question, but I wonder if you have any other questions for Lewis and Jonathan before we wrap up.
Mm, no, I had some other ones, but I think we kind of tackled them. Like I was thinking about, the how you guys are opening up the space from like ownership of NFTs. You own you own a piece of art, you own the video or whatever. It's more like a sharing economy. You're going into more of a sharing economy where everyone can have access to it. But I think we touched on that as well. And also we touched on the relationship between fans and creators a bit. But do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like how that will, some other thoughts about how that will how you guys can affect that? I think it's quite straightforward or quite clear, but there's so many things, right, that might happen.
Yeah, I think it might warrant maybe a follow-up interview that we can collect some of these topics that we haven't covered today, and have another session that we can just really dive into working with direct audiences. What are case studies, and teasing that apart.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we should set some time again. And yeah, I mean, yes, go ahead.
Oh, this was a really fantastic jam talking together. I really
totally. Yeah, really, we really appreciate your time. I have one last question to wrap things up. How do you imagine the metaverse looking like in the future? Let's end with that.
Saw a really interesting tweet. I can't remember from who, but someone mentioning how like with deep fakes and like a lot of the technology that's like coming about today, like suggesting that like maybe there will be a day where like with metaverse and NFTs, like your digital identity will actually be more unique and provable and verifiable than your actual identity, because of like how these technologies are like growing with AI and like face recognition. And I find that fascinating because I think that it's Ready Player One is an often reference that we hear like in the space, and I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, where it would be a great like goal to work towards, but through a decentralized fashion, because that was the only problem with like in the book and the movie was like, well, this is controlled by this centralized entity. And so I see like, it's very likely, and I don't think it's that far off. I think within the next 5 to 10 years, like people will start, working in the metaverse. They'll start like, that will be like a second home. There'll be people who feel more comfortable there. There are people today who feel more comfortable online than they do in real life. So I don't think that's, so far-fetched at all. And NFTs will just be, this, people won't even like think about NFTs. It'll just be something that runs on its own. And it's just like, everything is an NFT, and it's like, well, yeah, duh, right?
Yeah, I imagine that we are in a few years ahead, things are going to change in unimaginable ways, but it's going to be along the lines of Ready Player One, which I haven't seen or read yet, but I think we're going to use technology to literally clothe ourselves and create environments. It's not just I think the future is, the wrong way of looking at the future is like we are just substituting real life with a digital reality, but that we are going to be blending real life with digital reality and creating hyper realities. And I think VR is really exciting technology, but I think long term, the next 3 to 5 years out, I think augmented reality is going to overtake VR, and being able to augment, not replace reality, but to add to reality additional information, customize how we want to express ourselves, customize our personalities in a hyper way that we can't even do physically, but yet use this in an augmented way. Yeah, I'm really excited.
I love that. Yeah, it's like technology as augmenting, as expanding. And also to your point, Lewis, where the future would look like NFTs is just, it's not even a thing. It's just normal. It's like in the same way how younger folks, there's no separation with digital life and real life. It's like it informs each other. There's, and so, yeah, I mean, these are beautiful thoughts. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sharing about the project. Thank you for sharing your thoughts about the future. And we are really very excited for Mintgate and its continuous iteration. And yeah, thank you for being part of our community. And
Well, Mark and Max, I really hope you have a wonderful Friday. Really enjoyed our chat, and yeah, let's do this again sometime. It's been fun.
yes,
Sounds good.
absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Take
Thank
care.
you guys. Happy
Thank you.
Friday.
Happy
Bye.
Friday.